Welcome to your first and maybe only A Song of Ice and Fire Paternity Court. Hi, I'm LJ, a nitpicking nerd that loves to theorize about A Song of Ice and Fire. Feel free to argue with me. Hi, LJ here, back with another Faceless Man video because that's all I do on YouTube. So just to reiterate all the other videos that I've done, the first one was the Faceless Men Were at the Tower of Joy. I stand by that. I think it was a really well thought out series. Then I did one regarding the origins of Faceless Men, but I didn't do a great job. I mislabeled it, and so I almost took it down. Instead, I redid it. I had a third one, which was why Jaqen was in the Black Cells. Once again, I'd never heard my specific theory. It's possible someone else had thought of it, but it's a very interesting theory, and I actually had to take it down and put up a new version of it because the sound cut out, and thank you to the person in the comments that pointed it out. My fourth video was the second origin video because I botched the first one, and it was how we are misinterpreting the histories of the Faceless Men. It's awesome. There's a lot of great insight. I am telling you, I am proving these theories left and right. And then I did a fifth one, which was everyone's a Faceless Man. And at first I was going to go over many characters that could be Faceless Men, but I just honed in on one specific person, and I'm just going to tell you who it is. It's Littlefinger, and I have really good evidence. I promise you, if you watch that video, you're going to come out of it thinking yeah, Littlefinger very well could be a Faceless Man. And it's not just Littlefinger. I write about his family, House Baelish. I'm not saying that they are all Faceless Men, but I have picked up on things that no one else has. I really think if you like the Faceless Men and you're interested in theories, you should watch that video. Okay, so bring it to the present. I am now going to do a video on something that I discovered while I was reading the text from A Song of Ice and Fire. I've never seen this before. I'm super excited to put it out in the world. I'm going to admit, although there is strong textual evidence, it could mean several things. And so this is not a strong theory, but it is pretty powerful in certain ways because there have been multiple groups that people have tried to connect over the time. They've had a hard time doing it. And I'm just going to tell you who some of the players are right now. House Bolton and the Faceless Men. We both know they have the same magic. What is the connection? I'm not saying I know the exact connection, but I have found something that I think is substantial between the two, and I'm going to go over that. So, as I always do, I'm going to thank the people that came before me. Preston Jacobs was amazing with his videos. Order the Green Hand, I really like them. Gemma from Secrets of the Citadel, I don't know why you took your videos down. You shouldn't have. You were really good. I'm also going to say, once again, I have a speech impediment. So if you have trouble, listening to me, I am sorry about that. I slur some words, and, because I have a speech impediment, I get so nervous. Sometimes I completely misspeak. I'm way better at writing than I am my speech. So I am sorry. So I'm going to go and get into the video now. You guys, I have the most wild theory. It is so crazy. I am not saying this just for hype. I am saying this because it is truly crazy, and it has implications. Let me just tell you that. It has a lot of implications. So as I've gone through all the theories I've had, I've presented really great evidence, super evidence, evidence that people overlooked. And part of that is because I'm coming back after not paying attention to A Song of Ice and Fire for 5 years or something. I am coming back with fresh eyes, and there was one particular line that stuck with me that made me theorize into another thing, which made me theorize into another thing. And I am telling you, I found something crazy, and it's about the Faceless Men, but it's about some other families in Westeros, and let me tell you what it is. Okay, so you're going to think I'm crazy, and you might even turn off this video, but I promise you, you're going to want to stick with me till the end. What if Lysa Arryn gave birth to her first child? What if that happened? And I know what you're saying, no, she had the moon tea, all that stuff happened, that was a traumatic thing, why would you think that? And there is evidence against it, but the evidence against it is very easy to overcome. Let me tell you, I'm going to start with the line that got me thinking in this way. This particular line. And this is a Storm of Swords Sansa chapter number 7. And this is what Lysa said when she was just going crazy about the kiss between Sansa and Littlefinger. When they stole him from me, I made a promise to myself that I would never let it happen again. Jon wished to send my sweet Robin to Dragonstone, and that sort of king would have given him to Cersei Lannister, but I never let him, no more than I'll let you steal my Peter Littlefinger. So do you understand the words that she said when they stole him from me? And a lot of people meant the moon tea. I don't think that happened. And once I set the stage for you, I think you're going to ask some questions too. And so let's talk about timing and everything. So what happened is there was the battle between Littlefinger and Brandon Stark. And Littlefinger, almost killed, lying in his hospital bed. I already did a video on why I think he's a faceless man, and I stand by that. You should listen to it. So he's lying in bed, and Lysa is helping to nurse him back to health, and at some point they have sex. We don't know when. It's probably in the middle of that 2-week period because he stayed there for a fortnight, but it's probably at some point during the middle they have sex. And then a bunch of things happen. First, he has to recover the rest of the way before leaving, and then Brandon Stark at some point has to go to King's Landing, and he eventually gets executed. And keep in mind, he's not executed right away. Rickard Stark has to get there before the execution takes place. And then, after people realize he's been executed, they have to very quickly make a match between Ned Stark and Catelyn and Lysa and Jon Arryn. All these things happen. And even if they happen fast, they can only happen so fast. So I am guessing that they had sex, and it wouldn't surprise me if it took at least 6 weeks for them to get to the point where they were having their wedding. And so we also have to remember that she was pregnant during the wedding. How do I know this? Because her and Catelyn were very excited. They missed their moonblood together. Lysa's like, we're both going to have boys, and she's all excited. And then it says her moonblood came. She was very, very upset, very depressed. She couldn't even hold baby Rob. So all of that happened. And so it asks a couple questions. We know that Hoster offered her to Jon Arryn because she was proven to be fertile. Jon Arryn was an old man. He had fertility issues, and he needed a young, fertile bride, and Lysa was a young, fertile bride. So that happened. So Hoster knew she was pregnant, married her off to Jon. Hoster would not have married her off if she was still pregnant. He would have very quickly given her that tea. He would have given it to her before the wedding ceremony, especially since there is time going by, there's deaths of people, all this stuff is happening. So Lysa didn't drink the moon tea initially. She didn't do it. I promise you she didn't. And so she gets married. She all of a sudden is pregnant, and obviously she tries to pass it off as Jon Arryn's, and somehow Hoster knows. Hoster knows that she didn't take that tea, and so he didn't let her continue with the pregnancy, meaning he tried to give her the moon tea then. He forced her to drink it. But she was probably too far along, and it didn't take. And so now she has a child growing in her that is not Jon Arryn's. That is a very big problem. And so it is my belief that Hoster kept her at River Run pregnant quietly, and she gave birth to a first child. I will tell you who that child is later. And she was devastated when she was handed Robb Stark because she could no longer hold her child. And I know, it is very possible that she was emotional from a miscarriage. Many women go through miscarriage and they're devastated. I am going to believe that she was devastated because she could not hold her child again. So what we have to overcome is how Catelyn would not realize that she was pregnant. That's actually not the hardest thing. I had a daughter, and when I was pregnant, I have a daughter, but when I was pregnant, she was born at about 5 to 6 pounds, and I was probably a size 3 when I was pregnant with her at 8 months. I had her a little bit early. And so I never got very big. There was a small belly, but I never got very big. And so if a woman just so happens to not get very big in pregnancy, it's easy to conceal. And also medieval dresses They probably could have done a fashion that makes them easy to conceal. And if you think about it, in like Westeros, there were probably times where people were trying to conceal pregnancies in the noble classes. And so this was probably something like, oh, we need to go and get a tailor that makes dresses to conceal pregnancy. It's probably not the first time a noble woman's tried to conceal her pregnancy. So there's that. And what else? Catelyn Stark. She is family duty honor. She would never think that Lysa would get, but she wasn't looking for Lysa to still be pregnant. She wasn't looking for Lysa to have had a sexual relationship with Littlefinger. She was not expecting that because she is all about family duty honor. And also, like, she is a very self-absorbed woman. I don't like Catelyn, in case you don't know. She's just a very self-absorbed woman. And it's not a classist thing because I love Marjorie Tyrell. I'm not like, oh, she's rich and pretty and popular, I hate her. No, I don't like Catelyn, specifically Catelyn. But anyway, Catelyn Stark is very self-absorbed, and so she was probably thinking about her pregnancy the entire time, and like she probably wasn't buddy-buddy with Lysa, and when she was hanging out with Lysa was probably in a concealing dress, or towards the end they were probably just not bringing Lysa out to see her. There was other things that were being done, things like that. I don't think it's worth killing this theory over the fact that Catelyn did not notice she was pregnant. Catelyn did not notice a lot of things. She is not the most logical person. She thinks of things through the lens of being an entitled woman, an entitled highborn woman. It's why I think she missed the real motivations of Peter Baelish that I went over in my last video. So I think that, just to reiterate, Lysa Tully had her first child that was supposedly moon-teed to death, and I am going to now go over who that exact child is and why it is insane. So who is this child? Who is the child that Lysa Tully and Peter Baelish had? Who is Robert Arryn's brother? I have the answer. And it is so wild that you're not going to believe me, and you're probably going to go and think I'm crazy. And that's fine, because I have evidence. I have a lot of text evidence. And that child, drumroll, is Ramsay Bolton. And I know you're going to say that that's crazy because we already know Ramsay's history. It's lies, and let me tell you, there's a lot of lies tangled here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to point you in the direction of the line of text that showed me that this was possible. Like, because at first I'm like, yeah, I think the child lived based on that, but who could the child be? Because that would be significant. And it was this line. Lysa had pale blue eyes that were not like Catelyn's blue eyes. And there's so much emphasis put on Ramsay Bolton's blue eyes that are pale like Roose Bolton's blue eyes. But it wasn't Roose Bolton's. It was Lysa Tully's and Littlefinger's. And I know that the movie or the show makes it seem impossible because of the ages, but keep in mind, Robb Stark was born in 283 after Conquest, and they don't have an exact date for Ramsay Bolton, but they said he could have been born on or before 282 after Conquest, which is a year before Robb was born, which is the exact, like, Lysa's child would be older than Catelyn's child. And every time I started looking through the texts, I just got more and more sure that I was correct. For one thing, Catelyn hates bastards. She hates them. She, like, not just Jon Snow, she thinks a lot of mean inner thoughts about bastards because she is a highborn lady. Guess who else hates bastards? Ramsay Bolton. It is a constant source of stress. Not only that, there's so much more. Poison. Ramsay Bolton poisoned his brother Domeric. Or Domeric, I don't know what it is, which is a very Faceless Man thing to do, which if you had watched my videos, you would know that I believe Littlefinger is a Faceless Man that uses poison. Poison was used to kill Jon Arryn, and now we have Ramsay killing another prominent person with poison, and so there's that. Also, when he married Lady Hornwood and he left her to die and waste away, get this. This is really good evidence, because before I was like, why would he even include that detail? Now I know. Lady Hornwood was so hungry she ate her fingers. Yes, and how do we know? How do we know about fingers in the story? Because Littlefinger, he was Lord of the Finger, like the smallest finger. So there is that. I'm gonna be back in a minute with more evidence. I was just so excited to get this initial part out that like I had to go and like make a video and say like, oh, I know who the child is. So give me a minute and I will be more coherent. Okay, so let's go over the rest of the evidence because there is a lot. So we're gonna start by talking about Ramsay's lips, which are described multiple times. They are thick, they are wet, and they're kind of, by the description, they look wormy, and that's kind of an association with the House of Black and White and the Kindly Man. Littlefinger arranges a marriage between Ramsay and Jane Poole, and in Westeros, typically the fathers, with the mothers' insight, arrange the marriages. So that is a very fatherly thing to do. And not just that. Keep in mind, in my last video I stated that Littlefinger was a faceless man. And he is marrying Ramsay to a faceless man, a fake Arya who is in training to become a faceless man. So I think that is significant. Both Littlefinger and Ramsay blame murders on other people. That happens multiple times. They both rise in rank and change titles often. That is a parallel between the two. And that's like not super easy to do when you're lower born. They both have insane faceless man connections. I'm going to probably say that 50 times because we know that the Boltons have faceless man connections, and we also know that the House Baelish has insane faceless man connections. So that is something similar between the two. Also, Roose has fertility issues, so we're going to get into Roose in a moment, but like, he probably didn't father many children. Also, the Boltons have the Dreadfort. Littlefinger has, get this, the Dreer Fort. That is not the official name of his keep, but that is what it is called, is the Dreer Fort. And I mean, it's not a leap there. So this is another thing. Ramsay Bolton is literally destroying House Stark. He supposedly, flayed 2 of the Stark children and stuff, and both Lysa and Littlefinger kind of have beef with the Starks because Lysa is angry at Catelyn for, Peter Baelish being obsessed with her, and Peter is upset with the Starks and Catelyn because Catelyn rejected him, and look at what Brandon Stark did to him. So in a way, he is enacting revenge on the Starks through his bastard child with Lysa. So there's that. And one more thing. And I'm sure I'll find other evidences and I'll come back like, wait, I have one more piece of evidence. Like, that's going to happen. It always does. But this last thing is interesting because Roose describes Ramsay as sly, greedy, and cruel. And we know that Littlefinger is all 3 of those things. And it's also worth mentioning that Ramsay's very clever. He seems like a bull in a china shop, but like, he is clever. He is not a total idiot. He can do things, he can put together plans and enact them. And he's a little sloppy, but like, he's not dim-witted. He's just wild. So that is all the evidence that I've collected thus far. I'm going to go into next what I believe happened in the story and how Roose came to be his father. So now I'm going to get into the sloppy section of my theory, and it's sloppy because it's the history section, and George often lies to us, and we misinterpret texts often. So let's begin with Ramsay's conception. It is said that Roose Bolton found out that the miller took a wife, and he was enraged that he didn't get like the first knight's rights, and so he went, slaughtered the miller, procreated with the wife, and Ramsay was conceived. I'm going to say I don't believe that. And the first and foremost, peasants are currency. he was a miller, he was a skilled laborer, and he is in the north where the winters are so cold that old men have to leave, and so that the rest of their community can keep going. Like, they kill themselves so that the herd can survive. So I just don't really think that he's going to kill a skilled laborer over this. Maybe he would procreate with the wife and the miller could do nothing, but I don't think he's going to kill the miller over it. Ramsay is not a hothead. He is a cold, calculating individual. He is one of my favorite people in all of A Song of Ice and Fire. He doesn't lose his temper easily. I sincerely do not think that origin story is correct. I don't even think that he really practices the first Lord's right to the first night. I don't think he actually practices that. We only hear that coming from him. So he is trying to maintain a lie that he is being forced to maintain, and I do think that lie is forced. So now we're going to go into the next part where the woman presents the child to Roose Bolton. And this is huge red flags here that the story is made up. Why? Because he says he considered killing them, and then he saw the baby's blue eyes, and he realized that they matched his blue eyes, and then he's like, I can't do that because it's kinslaying, and kinslaying is taboo. And that is bullshit. Do you want to know why it's bullshit? Because he breaks taboo rules like he breathes. He violated guest rights when everyone was slaughtered at the Red Wedding. He kingslayed Robb Stark. He is the one that killed Robb. So he is a kingslayer and he violates guest rights. I don't think he cares about kinslaying. I sincerely doubt that he does. He is not someone that seems to put weight into those practices. So that is why I believe that. That's not why I believe, but that is the history that we know of and why I think that we've been lied to about it. And next, I'm going to get into why I think he's being forced to do this. So this brings me to an even sloppier section of my video, and that is the theorizing of why Roose Bolton would pretend that Ramsay is his child. And it's not smooth. It's not, but I believe that I have laid out some good evidence for what probably happened. So if you watched my last video, you know that I believe Littlefinger is a faceless man, and that House Baelish were servants to the many-faced gods, and that Littlefinger wanted to rise to power and become a faceless man. So you already know that. And I also went over how Peter Baelish has faceless man connections, and he knows other faceless men and how they have helped him through the years. So Lysa and Littlefinger created a child, and keep in mind, Lysa has Went blood, and I don't know who it was. Someone went over how the Went line might have come from the Lothston line, and there's a lot of similarities, and so it's very probable that any child made from Lysa and Littlefinger would be magical. Just look at Robin Arryn. It was Preston Jacobs that pointed me in the direction of him being special. I had no idea that he had powers. I'm just that obtuse. Like, I don't see things right in front of me. And so Robin is incredibly powerful. And so the faceless men probably knew that any child from them would be powerful. And we also have to consider that the faceless men seek out powerful people. They seek out magical people. And so they probably were like, this is going to be a valuable child. We are going to put it in the right place. And so I believe that they would put that child with other people that were like faceless men adjacent. And who better in all of Westeros to be a faceless man adjacent than the Boltons? I cannot figure out the exact history of the Boltons, but I know that they practice the same magic as the faceless men at some point in history. I don't know if it like dates all the way back to ET and like migration and stuff. They have the same genes. I have no idea. all I know is that they practice seeing magic, and like everyone has seen it. I don't even think that had to be like explained to me. I think I just found that out on my own, because there's a lot of things that I like, things that are very obvious that like I overlook. I didn't overlook that. So the Faceless Men are like, oh, we have this powerful child. And of course, Hoster Tully is going to want to get rid of that child. Like, thank God Jon Arryn was away campaigning and, fighting battles, so he didn't realize that his wife was giving birth. So Lysa had the baby. Hoster was able to give the baby to someone he probably didn't realize it was like a faceless man. And the Faceless Men placed it with another faceless family, and that family is the Boltons. And so they concocted a story where Roose would be the father of this bastard child and claim ownership to an extent. And I don't think Roose necessarily loved this, but I also don't think he had an option to say no. And throughout the story, I cannot say I spotted this myself. I think it came from Preston Jacobs, but it has been pointed out that Roose Bolton is not setting Ramsay Bolton up for success. I could go and watch those videos again and give you the details on why, but it is someone else's theory, and I feel very uncomfortable going and stating their verbiage in my own videos. So what I'm going to say is you should go to Preston Jacobs' videos regarding the Boltons and the Faceless Men, and you should come up, no, just the Boltons, and you should determine yourself whether or not you think Roose is trying to help Ramsay succeed, because I don't think he is, and it was only because of someone else making those videos that I realized that, so I'm not going to claim their work. So there's that. I'm also going to go through a couple other things that are very, very interesting. And the first being the Bolton words. It's actually our blades are sharp, and that's a very Faceless Man slogan, but they have other words that are like not, like they're like the unofficial words, and I love this. A naked man has few secrets, a flayed man none. And that is a very awesome saying. And at first you think, oh, it's about torture because people crack under torture. That's not true, because people lie when they're being tortured. It's actually in reference to face wearing. They literally put the faces on and they know their secrets. They can't hide their secrets. So there you go. That is just an awesome little Bolton tidbit that I wanted to put out there. There's more. I wanted to mention the leeching that Roose does. Per Roose, bad blood can be sucked away by leeches. They take away anger. Leeching is associated with dulling the emotions. We all know that Roose is not an emotional man, which is, I think, why he would never have killed the miller's husband. Like, he's not very emotional. He leeches away his anger. He's not feeling much anger. He's very cold and calculating. And when you strip away someone's emotions, they can be cold and calculating. So I just thought the leeching was very interesting. And like, there's been so many theories on why he leeches and if it's a Faceless Man thing. And like, I don't know. I just know that I really like that little bit of lore, and I hope that George explores it further, because if he doesn't, like, well, I mean, let's assume that we're going to get any additional content from him. Moving on. So this is something that I wanted to mention that I think is pretty freaking cool. And it is a repeat of history. There is a Bolton called Balthasar Bolton, and the name meaning, it means to preserve his life. And that is, to me, a reference to the Faceless Men, because in a way, even though they covet death and they give the gift of death, the husks is also a way of like eternal life. Like, if your husk is constantly being worn for thousands of years and your memories are still there and your emotions are still there, it is kind of a form of life extension. But I want to mention this, something like the Book of David in the Bible or something, but there's a thing called Belshazzar's feast, and it's a lavish feast, and it predicted a slain, and in the feast it predicted a slain king and the rise of another. And so Roose Bolton's ancestor is given this name that is in reference to a big feast where a prediction is made about the death of a king and the rise of another, and we know that Robb Stark died at the Red Wedding at the hands of Roose Bolton. And I just thought, like, what a piece of lore that George put in there. Like, go George. I love that. I think it's amazing. And I do think that he's very intelligent. And when he wrote The Red Wedding, and when he named background characters and background ancestors, I 100% think that he had that in mind. Another thing I want to say, and this is just me, I'm not sure if this is true. Like, there's no good reason for me to believe this is true, but I had wondered if possibly Peter Baelish's mother, who is Elaine, if she could have possibly maybe been a Bolton, or if somewhere in his line there was a Bolton, and the Faceless Men could have arranged that because they're like, well, both of these families are Faceless Men adjacent, and we should connect them because it would be harder to bring in another family and have them be like, oh, by the way, we worship, like, find out that they're worshiping the many-faced God. I don't know, but that is something that I was toying around with my head, and that would make a lot of sense on why they would give baby Ramsay over to the Boltons if there was a genetic link that would merge the two. And that's actually, like, not only is that not far-fetched, but I could just see that. Like, it's not a stretch of the imagination. Another thing I want to add is that when I said how Roose wasn't exactly helping Ramsay out, and that was from another influencer, that's not like what is going on in present times is not the only indication of that. He gave Ramsay Bolton Reek, and he's not even sure who corrupted who, and Reek smelled super bad, like super, super bad. And first of all, like, I don't think giving your child someone like that is wanting to help them succeed. I just don't believe that's true. But it could be a couple things. It could be that he just hated Ramsay and he just gave him to be a jerk. But also, it could be that the Faceless Men forced him to give him Ramsay or Roose or Reek. All these stupid R words. Like, it could be. I mean, this was a guy that smelled rotten. He could have very well been a corpse. And the Faceless Men they have a lot to do with death. I'm not convinced that Reek wasn't maybe a gift from the Faceless Man, or it was a gift from Roose that was meant to be a slap in the face, because, like, Reek is not something you want around your children ever. And the implications of Reek and Ramsay's life, Lord knows how Ramsay would have turned out without him, although I think he would have still been mad. I actually think the reason why Ramsay is the way that he is because of damage from Moon Tea. I think that he survived it, but I think that it had a lasting implication on his health, his mental health and stuff. So I'm just not completely convinced that the Reek thing wasn't actually a gift from the Faceless Men and not from Roose. And if it was a gift from Roose, it was a slap in the face, because you don't want your kid around Reek. So we have that, and I'm gonna take a break, and then I'm gonna try to tie all the things together in one last little segment. Keep in mind, I know that this video is not like the holy grail of videos. There's no solid evidence, but I think the breadcrumbs that I put together weave a really good story. And even if I am incorrect, I've definitely provoked some thought. So I'm going to be back in a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to go over this theory from head to toe so that we can explore it, and I'm just going to give a couple odds and ends. So we start with Littlefinger getting Lysa pregnant, and the most important part of this is the fact that she remained pregnant at her wedding to Jon Arryn, which would not be a thing. Hoster would have definitely moon-teed that baby earlier. I believe she thwarted the moon tea by, like, pretending to drink it or tossing it out, and she then was revealed to be pregnant. Hoster put two and two together. Thank God Jon Arryn was away at war. He moon-teed her again. It didn't take because it was too late. And after trying significantly to moon-tee the baby, she had to give birth. The baby was Ramsay Bolton, which I know is freaking wild and insane, but, like, If you listen to the video, you know why I think that. Then I think someone went to Hoster, probably a faceless man adjacent is what I'll call them, the servants of the faceless man, or even a faceless man, went to Hoster under a disguise of someone trusted, maybe someone from the Baelish family, and said, hey, let me take this baby, and I know where to put it. And Hoster's like, yeah, take the baby. And so they brought the baby to the north, to Roose Bolton's estates, and they concocted a lie with Roose Bolton about how he was going to claim parentage. So we're at the point that Roose is forced to claim ownership of Ramsay, and it's like a hostage situation. I don't think Roose wanted to claim him, obviously, and the things that Ramsay does is it just leaves a bad stink on House Bolton. And considering that Ramsay killed Roose's one true-born heir, Domeric, I think that's a big deal. I think it's a big deal. Like, I don't think Roose was fine with it. I know that there's that theory that he wanted that to happen so he could name Ramsay his heir and eventually take his skin or whatever it is. That's entirely possible. It's a great theory. Whoever came up with that theory, good for you. It was great. But I actually think that that might not necessarily be the case now that I've reread it a billion times. I think that Roose Bolton was forced into this situation that he can't get out of because it's not just Ramsay, it's the whole Faceless men trying to push this on them for whatever reason that they might have. And keep in mind, like, the things that Ramsay does on some level benefits Euron Greyjoy. Why do I say that? Because, you know, he kills a bunch of Ironborn. Why would that help Euron Greyjoy? Well, if you consider the fact that the people that he killed were probably backing Theon Greyjoy, it explains a lot. And as you know, Euron Greyjoy is associated with the Faceless men because he hired them. And so Ramsay could be included in that job. I've already stated that I think that Euron killed Balon. That's like pretty much stated in the text. I'm always going to say allegedly, or Euron hired the Faceless men to kill Balon, allegedly. I believe that's true. I also believe that Jaqen H'ghar was hired by Euron to kill Ned Stark, allegedly. And I also think that Ramsay Bolton might also be under the employ of the Faceless men to have killed and do some of these things in the north to help out Euron. I strongly believe that's true. But that gets into a whole nother theory. And like, it gets to a point where I'm not entirely sure if Euron is employing the Faceless men or if they're in league together, because it seems like the Faceless men worship death, and if Euron does what his endgame might be, I don't even know what his endgame is, but it could just be like world annihilation, then they get a lot of death, so they could be in league with each other. I'm gonna pretty much end it here unless I come back with like, oh, one more thing, which always happens. And the thing I'm gonna end this on is Littlefinger and how he dreamt of Winterfell and how it was cold and dark. First of all, that's wild that he would dream of Winterfell. Like, it's not that he's dreaming of Catelyn. He's dreaming of Winterfell. He's dreaming of a place he's never been to. And I thought a lot about that because it's very telling when you say, like, oh, I dreamed about you. But, like, dreaming of places, that is a very odd thing. And I'm like, what would get him to dream of places? And I think I figured it out. I think if he really is a faceless man wearing faces and flesh, one of those fleshes that he wore probably came from the north. And in my original theory, I said that Ethan Glover was a faceless man, and he is from the north. And so I definitely think him, along with some of the Boltons maybe, have faceless men ties, or they are in fact faceless men. And I think that maybe one of the husks that he wore was from the north, and that is why he was saying that he dreamt of the north and it was cold and dark, because that just makes a lot of sense. Oh shit, my video is going out. So I've reached the end of my theory, and I really hope that even if you don't agree with me, that you at least respect my research and that I made so many great connections with the players in this theory. I'm not going to ask you to like my video or subscribe or anything. I don't really know how many more videos I'm going to do. I have at least 10 really big theories that I haven't seen other people put out there, but like I have a life outside of this and I'm not doing this for money. And you might be asking yourself, like, why are you doing this then? And the truth is actually really sad. I moved as an adult, and so I had this amazing friend group, and I moved as an adult, and I haven't found any friends. Like, I have no real life people that I make connections with. I don't even have someone to have coffee with. So I'm just really like lonely, and I don't have many people to discuss my theories with. And so I decided to First, I decided to spam a bunch of influencers, as I've said in the past, and I am embarrassed by that. I shouldn't have done it. I would do it again in a heartbeat, though, because like I was desperate. So I tried to get other people to like talk to me about my theories and have them produce videos, because I really wanted to get the community talking about my theories, but that didn't work. And so I'm like, screw it, I'm going to do it myself. I think my next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the theories on random message boards, which I've been avoiding because like it can be really hard to go on message boards and have like keyboard warriors attack you, which I've seen time and time again. I just don't want to deal with that shit. I'm not someone that has that kind of energy. I really just want to talk to people about my theories without dealing with filtering out assholes. So that is why I'm doing this. I don't know how many videos I have in my future. I hope that you comment though, or at least give me your thoughts or refute my theory. I would love to hear evidence contrary to it. And also, I am sorry if I sound contrarian about anything. Like if you tell me like, oh, that's not true because the text says that. If I say, well, what if I think the text is wrong? That sounds so contrarian and I hate that. But most of my theories rely on misinterpretation of texts in order to be accurate, or flat out lies, which I think we all know George does that. So I'm not trying to be contrarian to make my theory work. I'm just trying to point out that maybe that text is not accurate. So thank you for listening to me, and I hope that you enjoyed my theory.